Hello, everyone. My name is Virginia Woodward, and I am the CEO of Fear to Freedom. And you are here with us on Facebook Live. We're so excited to have you with us today. And this month, the month of July, we've been focused on sexual violence prevention in the military. And we have a very special guest with us today, Kelly Martin McGowen. Welcome, Kelly. It's good to see you.
Hello. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me, letting me participate.
We're so grateful for you to be with us. And for our audience, Kelly has quite the impressive resume, let me tell you. She served over 20 years in the US Air Force, including positions as Special Assistant to the, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Chairman, and also as Director of Operations Air Mobility Command. That sounds pretty huge, really huge. But what pertains to our interview today is when Kelly was Vice Wing Commander of MacDill Air Force Base, she was responsible for the Air Force Sexual Prevention and Response Program for over 15,000 military personnel who were on base. So that's really impressive, Kelly, and we are looking forward to hearing about your experience with that. But we also are so grateful because Kelly is also on our Fear to Freedom board. So we appreciate your service in so many different ways. So welcome, Kelly. And I'm just going to start right in with our questions.
Okay, let's do this.
So let's do this. First of all, Kelly, how did you decide to join the military?
Well, I came from a military family. My father was in the Navy. I grew up down in Virginia Beach in a Navy town. But when I was 13 years old, he got an assignment to Okinawa, Japan. And so we all went over there and we were there for a year. And in that time, it was like my whole world opened up. And I was 13 years old. Was just involved. They've got a lot of Air Force. They've got all the services there. And I'd always been interested in flying and the aspects involving, I thought, airplanes were the best thing ever. And all good things happen with airplanes. You get on an airplane, you get to go see your grandmother. You go on vacation. Everything associated with airplanes was good. And so for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant because way back when I was 13, flight attendants, women were flight attendants, men were pilots. And then through the whole experience, I met some women who were pilots, and it suddenly dawned on me, well, duh, of course, the view is so much better from the front seat. So
amen to that.
And then just the whole experience of being overseas and everything that goes with it, I was just like, okay, I want to join. So at 13 years old, I told my parents I was going to join the Air Force and become a pilot. And from that point on, that's all the decisions were made based on that. So going to Virginia Tech and going through ROTC and doing that all was related towards then that goal. So.
That is amazing. Oh, what a story. Oh my gosh, Kelly, that's so you decided at 13 to become a pilot. That's incredible. That is really incredible. But okay, you made the decision, but then, okay, did you go to the Air Force Academy or how did you go through the pilot training?
So everything was, I went to Virginia Tech and ROTC. Okay. And then through that whole program, then was selected to go into pilot training. And so after graduating and then receiving my commission, I then went from there to, the first thing I did was go to flight school. So I went out to Enid, Oklahoma to Vance Air Force Base. And I spent a little over a year going through flight school. And then from there I ended up being put into the KC-135 program, which is air refuelers. And so I did follow-on training and then eventually ended up at Wichita, Kansas, McConnell Air Force Base there. and that was my first operational assignment. And then it went on from there.
From there. Well, and then you've had quite an amazing career. I mean, gosh, I'm just in awe. Well, I wonder though, as a pilot, especially since that, that was like 20 years plus ago, did you face any, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
don't mean to say, okay, that's over 20 years ago. But well, what were the gender issues like then? Did you face gender issues like with other pilots? And
unfortunately, yes. When I came into the military in the early 90s, it was right when the law changed from women being able to serve in combat roles in flying. So women had been flying on the big airplanes, the cargo airplanes and such. And so but then it was opening up to fighters and bombers and the like. So definitely a big shift was going on, and not everybody liked the shift. The good old boy network, it was very much still in there. And all the things that you hear about, they were happening in terms of just not everybody. And I don't want to paint an overly negative picture, but you had some of those men who just did not want to let go of the boys club. And so they resisted any way they could. But the good news is that there were also many majority of other men that I worked with that welcomed me, that I was great friends with, that I still keep up with today. And that actually is really the main focus of my career and my experience in the Air Force. It's unfortunate that you have those few bad apples.
But you had some good support that encouraged your career forward. Wow.
Absolutely. And I had mentors that gave me opportunities, and that really led to a lot of opening of doors. And if it wasn't for those mentors, the majority of who were men, then I wouldn't have had the career that I did. So I'm very grateful to each of them.
Oh, that's kind of relates to the next, to our main topic, the issue of, sexual violence and sexual assault. In a way, we need everybody on the same page to work towards prevention. And because right now, when Fear to Freedom started, you probably remember, Kelly, we put 2 in the number Fear to Freedom because every 2 minutes, 10 years ago, someone was sexually assaulted in our country. Now, unfortunately, that statistic is now every 68 seconds, which is just horrifying. But I was wondering, with your experience and in the military, is that kind of similar? Does the military, sexual assault in the military and violence, does that track with the statistics in the general population?
I think by and large, with whether it's the issue of sexual assault or even things like suicide or some of these other very significant social issues, you'll find that things track fairly closely in the military as they do in the greater society. Because at the end of the day, we are simply a slice of America's society. Mm-hmm. And so we have people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, from all around the country, that all come into this big melting pot, and we all get mixed up together, which is a good thing. And I think the thing that makes the military a little bit different, and where sometimes our numbers may look worse, is the fact that we are very active in tracking and asking and training and supporting and all of the things that go into when you have an issue like sexual assault. These things need to be done for us to be, if we're going to ever get to a good positive results and really combat this problem, then it is, we've got to be doing these things. So when you are tracking and you are asking questions.
Yeah.
And we do things like anonymous surveys. So we've had outside agencies come in, and like Pew Research has come in and has done a massive sexual assault survey where they asked questions because we really wanted to get at, okay, what is the population of the military and the Air Force in particular, and because that's what I was working at the time, but it was all across the DoD, everybody did it. And so it really then provided a good picture of where we were at that point in time. And unfortunately, I think it surprised a lot of people, the amount of sexual assault that was going on.
Oh,
But once
wow.
you know it, then you can start doing something about it. And at least the military, that's what is good about the military, is that it puts the resources towards finding what that problem is, and then let's start getting at that problem.
And do something about it. I like the way you said that,
Yes.
but you to take it here's the situation. They did the research and brought in the independent, non-biased approach to then actually get a real look on the situation. So, but you yourself in your role, did you encounter any cases of assault, of sexual assault?
So the main place where I got directly involved with sexual assault was when I was the vice wing commander at MacDill, because every military facility has a sexual assault response coordinator, SARC. So military loves acronyms.
Yeah.
We call them the SARC. So the SARC actually worked directly for me, the one at MacDill Air Force Base. And MacDill Air Force Base, not only did we have our flying wing, but we also hosted several major headquarters for other parts. So like Special Operations Command headquarters was there, Central Command headquarters was there, very large organizations. So the SARC then supports all of those operations and headquarters going on. So like you said earlier, we had about 15,000 folks that we would be helping through training programs. And then when a sexual assault happened, the response coordinator was always involved and directly with the victim when we were notified of it. So as the wing command or the vice wing commander, whenever one of those calls happened, I then got a call from the SARC, who then let me know what was going on, the situation, what we had at the time. And then as we got past the initial reporting, depending on what the victim wanted to do, because you can either then go and keep it private, in which case just the SARC knows the details, or you could be what we call, you could report it for action, where it could then go and an investigation would be opened, and possible charges, and we'd start that whole process. And I would then track things all the way through, even to the point if we could get to the point where we could then prefer charges and go in the criminal justice system. So.
No, and so then if it went through the military through that point, then once it got to the level of charges that you were moving forward, then it switched over to the civilian court?
Not necessarily. So if we had a member of the military who was sexually assaulted, but let's say they were sexually assaulted downtown off the base, then the civilian authorities had that soup to nuts because it was in their jurisdiction. But if something happened on base, or let's say for other members in other locations, let's say it happened on a Navy ship, or it happened in a deployed location, or it happened overseas or something into that, then the internal military justice system, so we have the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and which in many regards mirrors civilian law, and that would come into play, and we would go through that process of then investigation, and then charges, and then and then all the way to a court hearing. And if the person that was charged was found guilty, then it was a federal crime and they would go to jail and do federal time in a federal jail, Fort Leavenworth. And so, and it would be the same kind of charge as what somebody would have received in a civilian court.
Okay, so very serious. It was taken very seriously.
Yes.
So
with
did
all
you
the legal due process that goes along with
it, right? So I'm sure in your career there, I mean, did you see cases that actually that they brought to that to actually prison time?
So we did have cases, and there are many cases in which that has happened. I don't have the statistics or anything.
No, not
but you do see that happening. And one of the things that, again, as we worked then specifically at MacDill Air Force Base, we had a wonderful SARC, and I give so much credit to those individuals who take that step to report and to do it in a manner that we can then go after charges, because it's very difficult for those victims when they have to go back into a courtroom and relay and go back through and live it again by telling their story. And they don't just do it once, you have to do it time and time again. And it is not easy. And then of course, as in any court of law, you face the person in that courtroom. So one of the things our SARC did in realizing, how do we care for the victims, is that we created a room specifically for those people who are about to testify. That is a calm room. We painted it the calm colors. We had it very relaxing, inviting, a safe space, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to give them a safe space to feel, as much anxiety and everything that's going on for them. We wanted them to have a safe space that they could be before, during, and after the trial, that they could be right there. And so that was one of the things that happened during my tenure there at MacDill. And I know it's been replicated in other places. And so it's those kind of things that I feel like we can do more and more to help support the military victims of sexual assault.
Well, that brings up actually two questions. One is, as you, like in the military, you said it is a very involved process. How is the issue of sexual assault different for like the survivors in the military? Are there anything different things that make it different versus someone, a civilian?
I think there are a couple things that jump out in that, quite often when somebody is in the military, particularly if it's maybe their first assignment, and they're new to a location or something, they don't necessarily always have that homegrown support system because you're away from home. Or let's say you're in a deployed environment, or you're on ship. So in many regards, you may be away from all your friends, you're away from your family. You don't have that close-knit support that somebody might have if they're still living in the place where they've lived for 10, 15 years. In the military, we move on average every 3 years. In my 23 years, I moved 15 times. So
15 times.
So you're constantly starting over, and so you may not have those close friends that you feel like you can talk to something about, like sexual assault. So that's one aspect of it that can be very, very difficult. The other aspect that I think makes a little bit different for military people is that, particularly when the sexual assault is perpetrated by somebody else in the military. When people are coming in, we foster this idea of the band of brothers, the band of sisters, that we are family, that we care for one another. that we are there to support one another, that you've got your teammates back, they've got yours, that you can put your life in their hands, and that you've got their life in your hands. That mentality is put forth from the very beginning, from the day one of basic training for these folks. So then when somebody is assaulted by another member of the military, it is as if they've been assaulted by a family member.
Oh.
And the trauma that goes with that is then an additional layer of trauma, because that trust has been broken. And it can be that much more difficult in terms of the healing process that goes through it. And so we have found quite often that many of the counseling and healing practices for people who have been abused as children or survived incest and the like is applicable in that military situation as well. The other thing is that makes it difficult. So let's say something happens to someone who's on board a ship. There's no place to go. If you're out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there's no getting away from the other person. And in a very tight community, as people who are involved with this issue know, shame is very much a part of a victim after the incident. And so then the last thing you want is other people knowing that it happened. So here you are in close confinement, and you can't always get away, and everybody knows a lot of the business that's going on. I mean, you can just imagine what that would be like. So that's a very unique dynamic. And the number one thing, particularly that the Navy has found when they've tried to work with survivors of sexual assault is that they want to protect their identity in the whole process of reporting, even when they have to report on board a ship and everybody else, they don't want everybody else to know what's going on. So those are some of the challenges. The other thing I'll mention that's kind of, I think, unique a little bit to the military is that, and it surprised me actually when I was working for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and we were really looking at this issue, doing the research, the many surveys, and like I said, the outside survey. What we actually found is that in terms of raw numbers, men were as equally likely to have been victims of sexual assault as women.
Wow.
But because the ratio, the number of women is so small in the military, statistically, percentage-wise, there's more women that are victims of sexual assault than men, statistically, in that regard. But I think it's important to realize that men are equally victims of sexual assault. This is not a gender issue. It's very as much a man's issue as it is a woman's issue.
I'm really surprised by that, Kelly. That's really opening my eyes. I never, you think of military guys, you see the TV shows, like the big hulking Navy SEALs, and you think, oh my gosh. But I guess that's also another part of how it might be hard too, because for, the military, you consider a soldier, you're so strong. So like to kind of to face being assaulted, and from that perspective, how do you think that pertains to the journey of healing for survivors of assault in the military?
Well, and again, it just kind of goes that stigma and the shame that so many victims feel coming out of the experience. And so that is why as much as the victim is able to then come forward and report and feel safe and dealt with in a healing way, to start the journey and the process for them to come from fear to freedom, if I can use our own
Yeah. Our moniker, our mantra, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Our mission.
Exactly. You know, and you know, the challenges, for all the reasons that I've said, you know, is very much part of in that military setting. And now I've forgotten what the question was.
Oh, no, well, it kind of leads me into this next question, because, okay, suppose I am a military, military person, and I am assaulted. What can I do? What do I do?
Well, first, I just want to say, for any of our military folks that are watching today who have been assaulted, I just want you to know my heart goes out to you, and you have my utmost respect for enduring through that and coming out on the other side. My encouragement to anybody is the same that I would say to civilians as well, is tell someone. You don't have to go through this alone. In the military, you have the SARC. They're there, they're a hotline. You can call 24/7 and somebody is going to pick up. In the military, you also have a chaplain that are there on a hotline 24/7. You call, somebody's going to pick up. You've got the medical personnel there. You can talk to them, get help, and make that first step. You can still decide later whether you do an open reporting or a closed reporting. You don't have to decide that immediately, but reach out, make that first call. Don't do this alone. There are people there to support you and to walk through this with you. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, and then on the other side, suppose I have a friend who's in the military, who, is assaulted or victim of sexual violence. How, as a friend or a husband or a wife or a partner, what can I do to support my friend in the military who's gone through this?
First, I would say just be there for them. Let them know you hear them. And the biggest thing I would say is don't judge. Whatever the circumstances that are involved going on, don't judge. And the biggest thing I think that friend can do for a victim is to let the person know that they're okay, that it's not their fault. They did not deserve to be sexually assaulted, and to encourage them to get help. Be willing to go with them, walk them to the SARC, walk them to the medical, walk with them to the chaplain, whatever, encourage them. And, just let that victim know that they are there for them. And that they're there for them, whatever it takes and however long it takes. Because what a lot of people also don't realize is that if you do an open reporting where we are able to do an investigation and maybe be able to find justice in this situation, it can take a lot of time, and it can go on for a while. So being that friend who's there and gonna stick with their sister or their brother through all this, whatever it takes, that's what I would recommend.
Oh, well, that is, I think that's good advice actually for everyone, Kelly. I mean, if we have other friends, even who are not in the military, just to not judge, to listen, to let them know we're here for you, and just to be a support, whatever they decide. But it's so important what you said. Don't judge. I mean, don't judge. That's the worst thing you can do. And to support them. That's very, very powerful. That's really powerful. Well, Kelly, I think we're getting close to winding up, but I want to ask you about Fear to Freedom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what and how and what does the work of Fear to Freedom mean to you?
Uh, it has been a joy to be part of Fear to Freedom, an absolute joy. I retired from the military in 2016, so just about 5 years now. And initially I said I was not going to join any group. I wasn't going to do any activities. And then our fearless founder, Rosemary Tribble, I've been a longtime friend of mine, said, would you please come and be part of this? And I couldn't say no to Rosemary, of course. And
not many people, can, Kelly. That's how
I
I'm
love
here
Rosemary.
too.
And honestly, though this issue is combating sexual assault is really something that's been very strong on my heart. I think just through, going all the way back to college, I had a couple friends in college that were sexually assaulted, and I saw the impact that it had on their life, and watching their journey, knowing Rosemary and watching her journey from fear to freedom. And then just knowing, and my own experiences just in the military and being part of the program and being able to be part of making a difference and part of the change. And I knew I wasn't done. And so the opportunity to come on the board and be actively involved in the organization, it was just very easy yes to do. So
well, we appreciate all that you have done for Fear to Freedom, and what you continue to do for Fear to Freedom. But that also brings me to something I forgot to ask, which is what does the military do, but what can we do to prevent sexual violence and around us? What do you think would be some of the best things we could do to be a part of the solution in preventing and empowering like military members, but also our civilian population to prevent it?
Well, so I would say a couple things. One, donate to Fear to Freedom. What a great organization that's out there on the front lines, and making a difference, and not just combating sexual assault, but also helping with the healing of victims, in a very real, tangible, making a difference kind of way, with the Freedom Bear and our aftercare kits. I would say also, though, in terms of what everybody can do is it all comes out of the culture of either an organization, of a society, and it all stems down to respect. I always got asked what's it like being a woman in the military, and I've already shared I dealt with some of those bad apples, but what I have found is when you respect yourself, you respect others, and you expect them to respect you, it goes a long way. So this concept of let's teach each other and hold each other to that respect. And when you see, I'm a big believer in bystander intervention. I'm a huge believer in that. And when you're at the bar and you see something that looks like it's going a little sideways, step in. Don't be afraid to step in. When you see somebody making crude comments, or maybe getting a little touchy-feely when they shouldn't, say something. Don't accept bad behavior. If it's not respectful, it's not good. It's not right. Yeah. And be willing to be the person that says, okay, it's time to go get a cab. It's time to take this person home. It's time to stop this before it escalates into something that is life-changing in a bad way. We want to prevent that. Yeah. So be that bystander. If everybody says, I'm going to be the person that is mindful and aware, and then willing to stand up and say something, willing to get involved. I think that'll make a huge difference.
Oh, I think those are great ways to come and make a difference and to prevent, as a bystander, wherever you see it, it's, hey, let me take you home.
Yeah.
Let me have your keys. That is important too. Well, Kelly, as we wind up, is there one thing that you would like to leave our audience with today? One important thing that you would like to leave with the audience about the military, or about something you've said? I think you've given us some great things to think about, and I've learned a lot today. I've really learned a lot today, and appreciate your being with us. But is there one overarching thing that you would want to leave with us today?
Well, I would just say to those people who have gone through sexual assault, again, I have so much respect and admiration for you, that your courage to be where you are now and the journey that you are on. I say, keep at it, keep going. It's worth keep going on the journey so that you do get to the joy, to the freedom again. And I've become more and more aware of how many people experienced sexual assault years ago and never said anything. And it's okay to say something now. And it's okay to take that first step, you know, and start your journey from fear to freedom. And there's resources on our webpage. I'll do a public service announcement right back to our webpage. They're the services that you can find right there on that link. But make that first step, make that call, let someone know, start the journey home.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. This has just been such a special time with you today. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for how you shared. And I too want to reiterate what you have shared with the survivors out there. Please check out our website. There are links on feartofreedom.org. Please go to the website and just, anyway, we hope that you will move from fear to freedom. And thank you, Kelly, so much for being with us today. And I see you've got the lovely golf behind you, so maybe you need to go get a few swings in before the end of the day.
Exactly.
I thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful end of the day.
Thank you.
Take care.